Welcome to the first episode of the Once and Future Present, an AP European History podcast from Hammer History Productions. I'm Casey, and I'll be your guide as we explore how the past continues to shape our present. When we started this class, I thought history was just what happened. Names, dates, wars, treaties, the stuff you memorize and then forget after the test. But recently we've been reading and talking about the uses of history, and now I'm starting to see it in a totally different way. With me are my teachers, Professor Theo and Dr. Morgan, and I have a lot of questions. So let's start with that reading about the uses of history. There were so many different reasons people gave for studying history. Identity, understanding the present, learning critical thinking skills. It kind of blew my mind. Professor Theo, can you explain how history helps us understand who we are?
Absolutely, Casey. History gives us context, personal, cultural, even national identity. It reminds us that we didn't just appear out of nowhere. We inherit values, struggles, and stories from the communities we're part of.
Sometimes whether we like it or not.
Exactly. That's how we locate ourselves in the broader human experience.
And it also gives us the tools to think critically about the present. We don't study history because it repeats. We study it because it rhymes.
Oh yeah, I love that line.
Right? The patterns and analogies help us interpret today's complexities. But, and this is important, we have to be careful not to use history to just reinforce what we already believe.
Right, like when it talked about how you can cherry pick historical examples to support almost any position, that part really stuck with me. Okay, now that makes me want to go back to the activity we did in class. You had us match quotes to different uses of history. Can we talk through a few of those?
Sure. One of my favorites was, "History is a means of access to ourselves." That falls under the identity category. It's not just about what happened. It's about how what happened still lives in us.
And don't forget the one about history being a corrective, helping us avoid bad analogies and misleading conclusions. That's critical thinking in action.
There's also the one about hope. Remember that? Studying how people faced adversity and kept going.
Yes, and I remember one about empathy, that history lets us understand people who lived in really different times. That one kind of surprised me, honestly.
Empathy is essential. When we understand others, especially people separated from us by centuries, it makes us better citizens and better thinkers.
Okay, that helped a lot, but I still had questions after reading The Nature of History and the Helen Buss Mitchell piece. What is history? That line about history being a dialogue between the past and the present really stood out to me. Can you help me unpack that?
Absolutely. That phrase means that history isn't just about the past. It's about how the questions we ask now shape what we see in the past.
Exactly. Historians today care about different things than historians in the 1800s did. It's like what we choose to look at, what we highlight, that's all shaped by where we are now.
And that's not a bad thing, as long as we recognize it.
So that's kind of like when I care about gender or power or climate, those things change how I see the past.
Bingo. But that's also why we have to be careful with presentism, applying today's standards too harshly to the past.
Yeah, that part is hard. Some of the stuff people did back then feels super messed up.
It absolutely does. And we should be disturbed, but also curious. Why did they believe what they did? What were their options?
And the Nature of History reading said history is both the past and the study of the past. That tripped me up at first, but I think I get it now. The past is what happened. History is what we say about it.
Perfectly said.
And that's why it's interpretive, not because it's made up, but because the evidence is always incomplete and people have different lenses.
Okay, let's go back to the second activity, the one where we had to decide if statements were about the past or about someone's account of the past. That was trickier than I thought.
It usually is. Julius Caesar crossed the Rubicon. Sounds simple, right? But we only know that because ancient writers recorded it.
And even they had motives. Every source is a window, but it might be a stained glass one.
That's a good line.
So the activity was really about helping you see that most of what we call history is already someone's account, shaped by perspective.
I remember the one that tripped me up. Women were not allowed to vote in 18th century France. I thought, well, that's just a fact, right?
And it is. But the way we frame that fact as exclusion, as injustice, is interpretive.
Exactly. That's why historians have to constantly evaluate not just what's said, but how it's said.
This is starting to make more sense now. When I read a history textbook, I'm not just reading what happened, I'm reading someone's take on it.
Exactly. And when you see that, when you start asking whose voice is missing, or what questions are being asked, that's when you're doing real historical thinking.
Thanks for breaking all this down with me. I feel like I'm finally starting to understand what it means to do history.
You are. You're asking the right questions.
Welcome to the conversation, Casey.
Thanks for joining us on the Once and Future Present. If you want to keep learning history in creative ways, check out our AP Euro Music albums. Just search Hammer History Productions on YouTube or Spotify. Until next time, stay curious and think critically.